featured review is one of the big releases that was going to come out in the summer of 2020, and now it's coming out in the summer of 2021. It has all the makings of a great summer hit, and that is In the Heights, the first Broadway musical done by Lin Manuel Miranda, now making it to the big screen. Zach, we're going to you first on In the Heights. Tell us what it's about and what you thought.
Because I'm the expert on musicals and Lin Manuel Miranda. Okay, so
exactly.
In the Heights is an adaptation of the 2005 play, I think, and it tells the story of Washington Heights in Upper Manhattan, and a variety of characters, principally Latino characters, who many of whom have come from Dominican Republic or the Caribbean, but have set up lives for themselves, successful lives in the United States, in Washington Heights, in this kind of neighborhood of New York City, which they can really claim as their own, in spite of, you know, some institutional racism and also discrimination, and also maybe a little bit of what's the word? Blah, 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 blah. When you know, they turn the neighborhood into wealthy. Oh gosh, I'm totally blanking on the word. Well, gentrification. Thank you. Sorry about that. See, I didn't write down any notes, so I'm going. You know, this is why I shouldn't introduce movies. Anyway, okay, so yes, in the Heights, yeah, wonderful music. Yes, okay, so here's the problem I have with this movie. This is where I'm torn. Okay, so yes, it's wonderful, it's fantastic, wonderful to watch, beautiful actors, great choreography, fun, exciting. You know, the lighting is great, lots of big set pieces and all that. It feels like a throwback to old-fashioned musicals. It feels like a chorus line or something like that. The problem is I saw Hamilton first, okay? And Hamilton was something that was totally cutting edge. It was totally relevant. It had something to say. And what it was saying was, what if we were to look at what we studied in our history classes in high school and realize that it was wrong? Or realize that maybe the founding fathers had a different vision of the United States, or a more inclusive vision than what is popularly remembered or what is taught. In the Heights, I don't think has anything really to say. I feel bad saying that, but like a lot of the kind of old-fashioned musicals, I feel like fundamentally this movie is kind of empty. That's not to say that there's not great set pieces, there's not great acting. The music is good, although I gotta say, I mean, having seen Hamilton first, I feel like every single song in this movie feels like Lin Manuel Miranda. He has a very you know, it's a signature style. It's a good style. It uses, you know, that sort of poetry, R&B, iambic pentameter, you know, interspersed with music, which is great. But like, I kept on thinking, well, that sounds a lot like, you know, the Schuyler Sisters song, or that sounds like, you know, The Room Where You Have It, or all these other songs from Hamilton. And so that kind of like diminished the overall experience for me. I feel like this is a musical that really worked probably in the Obama era. It's a very positive, optimistic look at the beauty and power and majesty of the United States and the opportunity for immigrants to flourish in spite of these obstacles, most of which in this movie are very musical obstacles. Like I said, those things at the beginning, the gentrification, the racism, I mean, they're all kind of undercurrents in this movie. They're all very underplayed. So I'm kind of torn. I feel like had I seen this movie in 2011, I would have loved it. As it is, I enjoyed it. I wasn't really humming any of the songs afterwards. Not to say that's the only marker you should be making about a musical, but I gotta say, Hamilton, I was hooked like right away. I had all that shit in my phone right away on my Spotify playlist. This music, I was like, it's kind of good. I like the lottery song. You know, I like the song at the end where I mean, there's parts of it that are good, but in comparison to Hamilton, and I know it's not fair to compare it to Hamilton, it's just not the same experience. And I also gotta say, Hamilton, being performed on a stage, was so unique, so different, so unlike what I had seen before, what I'd come to expect from a movie musical. This feels just, again, like a throwback. And again, the choreography is impressive, but it just feels like something that was pre-pandemic, pre-Trump, pre-2010s. I don't know. So I feel like we've advanced beyond this. I have to give the movie 3 stars because from the production value standpoint, it's good, but I gotta say, I kind of wanted more, and you should see this before you see Hamilton. That's the best advice I got.
Well, I mean, if you're comparing something to Hamilton, it's always going to come up short because Hamilton is so great, and I think there's a couple things wrong with comparing it to Hamilton that I think you're missing. One, Hamilton, you knew the story going in, at least the bare bones of the story, and so you already had that connection to what it was. In the Heights, you don't have that. It's a brand new story that we have no connection to. Second, Hamilton is Lin Manuel Miranda refined and reaching like perfection, and this is his first show. This is him a lot more raw. This is him telling a very personal story, and I think that is what comes out in this. I'm giving it 3.5 stars. I was fully entertained by it, and it's a movie that just kind of leaves a smile on your face as you're seeing the characters, as you're seeing a spotlight on this community that you don't necessarily see spotlighted, and a spotlighted. I don't know. Anyways, Jon M Chu does an amazing job directing this as well. I think it's a beautiful directing job in that, yes, it feels like an old classic Hollywood musical, but it's got this energy and this vibe, and it's through the direction and the colors and some of the shots that he's able to get that breathe new life into it. It's just a whole lot of fun, and yeah, I was fully entertained. I watched it at home. I'm hoping to watch it in the theater at some point soon, because as I was watching it, all I was thinking was, man, this is probably really cool to watch on the big screen. So that's where I'm at. I get what you're saying. Yeah, not all the songs aren't necessarily as catchy, as stuck in your head as what did you say, the view where it is, or the room where it happened, or no, the rumor where it has it. I forget exactly what you said. Whatever it was really wrong. But no, In the Heights I had a lot of fun with, and it's got this energy. Anthony Ramos is a movie star. I can't wait for him to take off because he's awesome in this too. All right, so 3 stars from Zach, 3.5 for me. Todd, where are you at?
I liked it less than you guys. Okay. The movie's way too long. Like that's one thing. And I've never seen Hamilton, but I really couldn't understand what was going on most of the time in this movie because I couldn't understand what they were actually singing. Like it's like when you listen to a rap song, you don't know what they're necessarily saying until like the second or third time you hear it. And I kind of felt the same way about this. I was kind of lost most of the movie because I couldn't understand. I don't get that vibe from the movie musical to have this kind of music.
Do you speak Spanish?
No, of course not. Well, I mean, sort of. I mean, I took Spanish. That's not speaking Spanish. I don't know. The acting I think is pretty good. Anthony Ramos is of course amazing, and Dasha Polanco is fun to see. She was in Orange Is the New Black, and I thought she was really good. No one's getting nominated from this movie, but it's pretty much a lock for a SAG Ensemble nomination, I would think. Another problem I had was I don't understand why the movie is told in flashback. Like those beginning scenes with him talking to the kids are just like lame nothingness trying to make it a movie, but it killed the momentum every time they went back to it. And those scenes really don't have any reason to exist. When you actually see what that was actually about, it's somewhat surprising, but it doesn't really justify the existence of the movie in that sense. I think, and some of the storylines I thought should have been left off. Like, I'm sure it all meshed in the musical, but this just like put characters in front of you that you don't necessarily care as much about as the main people that you want to get back to. Like Jimmy Smith, like he's fun to watch and he's entertaining because he sings and stuff, and he's in Dexter, of course. But Lin Manuel Miranda is actually, he looks just like the Skinner who is also in season 3 of Dexter. And that is the type of thing that was going through my head because my mind kept wandering because I couldn't understand the music and I was just watching it. Because it is pretty beautiful to watch, but the director is the director of the Step Up sequels, and you can absolutely tell from how he directs this movie, like with the style of dancing and constantly breaking out into like a neighborhood-wide dance throughout the movie, seemingly out of nowhere, and it's like beautiful, overproduced visual flair, looked like a Step Up movie. And I don't know. I mean, maybe if I had gone to the theater, which I kind of regret not doing, I would have been more enveloped in the atmosphere, and I would have actually, maybe I would have been able to understand more of what I was watching. But the songs, I feel like, also are kind of instantly forgettable. They all sounded exactly the same. I'm not the target audience for the movie, but I feel like I kind of have to give it out of respect 2.5 stars. But in reality, my experience watching it was actually a lot lower than that.
So It kind of sounds like the two of you are kind of in a similar spot where you're giving it a higher rating just out of respect.
Yeah.
I don't know if I agree with everything that Todd said. I think there was a lot of hard work that went into this movie. I think it's really, and Todd even acknowledged that, really high production values. The choreography is great. I think there was time and effort put into it. So I have to acknowledge that. But I think the other points that Todd said are pretty accurate. I mean, the story, Terry, you said that, one of the differences between this and Hamilton is that this has an original story. No, it doesn't. Like, this is the most, like,
sure,
predictable, trope-driven musical ever. I mean, there's nothing.
I meant more.
Really
it's not a story that like. It's not when you go into Hamilton, the story of Alexander Hamilton, and the story.
You think you know it.
Sure.
See, that's the brilliance of Hamilton, is how subversive it is. It subverts your expectations. So, like this movie, yeah, it does feel like a step-up movie. It feels like a lot of musicals. It feels like a music video at times. And so I give it thumbs up on the basis of that. As an entertaining piece of pop art or pop, creativity, it's cool to watch. But it just... Hamilton's the reason it's messing it up for me, because I think Lin Manuel Miranda is a genius. I mean, if you've ever watched him on the late night shows when he does like the instant raps that he comes up with in his head, the man's a genius. Okay, he's a what? Isn't he a Pulitzer Prize winning musician? So like,
I think so.
He obviously has incredible skill musically, but also in terms of his social and political messaging. And this movie just doesn't have any. I don't know if in 2021 you can really get away with a musical that doesn't really have any sort of like political or social ethos. And I think this movie wants to have it a little bit, because it's definitely about being inclusiveness and having a diverse cast, but in a way that's kind of skin deep. And I just wish the movie had addressed maybe more issues instead of it wanting to be more of a throwback that everybody just naturally loves. I wish it had a little bit more of an edge. Maybe a different director would have emphasized that.
I think I saw recently that Lin Manuel Miranda started writing this musical when he was 19, and I think it hit Broadway when he was 28. So I mean, just super, super young, doing all this work, and I think that's kind of what you see in that he's still developing his storytelling ability. But what I saw, and I mean, this was a Tony Award-winning musical. Like, this won the Tony for Best Musical of the year it came out. And I think what they saw then is what I'm seeing is just the pure energy and charisma of the music, and the story is kind of undeniable, I felt.
Let me ask you something. Do you think this movie would have been better had it been shot as a performed play like Hamilton? Because I kind of think it would have. I think that would have been more interesting in a way.
I've seen clips of this when it was on Broadway, and what's interesting is this was a very minimalist show on Broadway. Very, very stripped down set, very little going on kind of on stage, a very, very small cast. So I think opening it up and allowing it to be this huge production actually did this one a lot of good. It changed it into something more.
Does Lin Manuel Miranda direct his plays?
No, he doesn't.
Okay, because I was thinking, like, why didn't he direct this? Like, maybe it would have been, I don't know, maybe that would have kept to the spirit of what it was trying to do or something. I don't know. I mean, I figured that he did direct them.
For what it's worth, I really liked him as an actor in this movie. He was probably my favorite character in the movie, and I thought he had some of the best musical numbers. In fact, the end credits scene, the scene after the end credits, I kind of loved, and I wish that had been developed more into a storyline that maybe had a few more numbers attached to it, because that actually was really funny, the rivalry between those two characters.
Well, and especially it being those two characters.
Oh, exactly. Well,
that was... Yeah, because it was
think of Hamilton,
right? Well, but the thing is, it's Lin Manuel Miranda and Christopher Jackson, who in the original Broadway cast were Usnavi and Benny, and Chris Jackson played Benny in the original cast. So you have these two originals coming back to reprise their roles, or to be a part of it in cameos. One thing that I thought was really interesting, and we'll kind of wrap up on this. I saw recently, as this was coming out, that to kind of tie it to what we were talking about, this shot in the Heights was shooting like a block away from Steven Spielberg's West Side Story at the exact same time in the summer of 2019. Like they were interviewing Jon M Chu recently, and he said like there was one time where they actually had to go over to the West Side Story set and say, "Hey, your catering truck is in our shot. Can you please move it?" That's how close they were shooting to each other. So it's just kind of fascinating that that everything was happening in the same area of New York City. And even like there's the one scene at the basketball court, and when I saw that, I'm like, that looks like the set of West Side Story, and I bet they both filmed it in that same spot. All right. Well, Todd's giving it 2.5. Zach is giving it 3. I'm giving it 3.5. This is in theaters right now. It is also on HBO Max, so you can watch it there. The big story of this weekend has been the disappointing box office numbers for In the Heights. I think because so many people are staying home to watch it. So I would say if you can go to the theater and watch this movie, I think it's definitely an experience that would enhance it for sure.